Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith TV. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And we begin with Russia and Ukraine war as we start beyond the continent with news of U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth telling key Ukraine war meeting at NATO headquarters that American troops will not deploy to Ukraine as peacekeepers for any peace deal with Vladimir Putin. NATO defense ministers gather in Brussels for a Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting, to which the Ukrainian defense minister attends. A U.S. defense secretary who attended the meeting for the first time insists that Europe must provide the overwhelming share of future lethal and non-lethal aid to Ukraine. He dismissed Ukraine's NATO membership drive as not realistic outcomes of Russia peace deal, adding that returning Ukraine to pre-2014 borders, which is also unrealistic.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5. Safeguarding European security must be an imperative for European members of NATO. As part of this, Europe must provide the overwhelming share of future lethal and non-lethal aid to Ukraine. The United States remains committed to the NATO alliance and to the defense partnership with Europe. Full stop. But the United States will no longer tolerate an imbalanced relationship which encourages dependency.
Still on U.S. involvement in Ukraine war, citizens of Ukraine are reacting to the idea that Ukraine may be Russian someday, as floated by U.S. President Donald Trump. Some residents of Kyiv say Trump has a right to free speech, insisting that Ukraine will never be Russia. They argue that they are a sovereign nation and will never be subject to the authorities in Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump has floated the idea, suggesting that Ukraine may one day come under the authorities of Russia. Now, this comes as Vice President J.D. Vance gears up to meet Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky later in the week.
Ні, він хоче просто якось виділитися з усіх тих, хто був. Він підтримує зв'язок із нашим президентом, і з Рашкою, і хоче якось чимось допомогти, але до вашого питання, я думаю, що це повний бред, адже ми повністю будемо стояти на своєму місці, на своїй точці, і будемо максимально підтримувати Україну. Якщо він таке каже, це якийсь старчий маразм.
Моя думка, він може думати все, що завгодно, і казати все, що завгодно. Але Україна не буде Росією ніколи.
Ну, я думаю, що Трамп взагалі не знає, що таке Росія і Україна, і взаємовідносини між росіянами і українцями. Тому я впевнений, що ніколи ми не станемо Росією. Може, якусь часть вони і заберуть силою, ну це якийсь...
Meanwhile, Russia has dismissed any consideration for occupied territory swap deal with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky floated the idea of exchanging occupied land as part of a peace deal. Zelensky had suggested exchanging Ukrainian held chunks of Russia's region of Kursk for Russian-controlled territory in eastern and southern Ukraine. in an interview published late Tuesday. However, Russia dismissed the proposal outright after launching multiple drones and missiles on Kyiv, which has so far killed one person. Ukrainian forces rushed over the Russian border in August last year to wrest control over swaths of territory it hopes will be key to any future deal to end the grinding conflict. Armenia's parliament on Wednesday approved the first reading of a bill launching the country's bid to join the European Union. The Caucasus nation, which is an ex-Soviet state, historically ally of Russia, has deepened its tie with the West in recent years. It accuses Moscow of failing to protect it against arch foe Azerbaijan. 63 members in the 107-seat chamber voted for, while 7 deputies voted against, paving the way for a second reading. Bills typically need 3 readings before they become law. Meanwhile, the Russian-leaning opposition factions boycotted the vote, accusing the government lawmakers of jeopardizing the country's free trade with Eurasian Economic Union, a Russian-led economic bloc of several ex-Soviet states.
Մարդիկ Եվրոպա ասելով հասկանում են ազատություն, հասկանում են մարդու իրավունքներ, հասկանում են բարձրորակ բժշկական սպասարկում գիտականորեն հիմնավորված, հասկանում են կրթություն, այսպես են հասկանում մարդիկ ինչ է Եվրոպան, ճաշակ, բարեկեցություն, խաղաղություն, ապահովություն, նաև շատ բարձրորակ եւ բարձր տեխնոլոգիական զենք եւ զինամթերք։
Առաջարկում ենք կողմ քվեարկել օրինագծին, դրանով իսկ հստակ ուղերձ եղել եվրոպական կողմին գործընկերությունը որակապես նոր փուլ տեղափոխելու վերաբերյալ։
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has met with Sudanese counterpart Ali Yusuf in Moscow for discussions on the ongoing conflict in Sudan. Lavrov expressed hope for the situation to return to normal as soon as possible, suggesting nationwide dialogue with all parties involved. This follows intense fighting that has persisted since April of 2023. The conflict has displaced around 12 million people, as reported by the African Union and the International Rescue Committee. Despite the ongoing turmoil, both sides expressed a desire for a resolution. And now to discuss the news of the U.S. Defense Secretary telling during a key Ukraine war meeting at the NATO headquarters that American troops will not deploy to Ukraine as peacekeepers for any peace deal with Vladimir Putin. Joining us now for more conversation on this move, we're joined by public affairs and political analyst Alistair Wilcox. Well, Alistair, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. I mean, let's just get started very quickly because we're pressed for time. What are your perspectives on Trump's administration's approach to ending the Ukraine war?
Well, Trump has never, Trump has never hidden his disdain for Ukraine, even though sometimes he will prove to be friendly with Ukraine by having meetings with the leaders of Ukraine. But Trump has always been sympathetic to Russia. There has been this bond between Trump and Vladimir Putin. As such, Trump will not take the kind of hard stand that Americans will always have taken, just as the recent Democratic Party was doing, Biden was taking a very hard stand. Trump is sympathetic to Vladimir Putin, and as such, in all circumstances, he wants to be in the good books of Putin. During the election, Trump was boasting that he could end the war in 24 hours. But of course, this is like 20 days after he was sworn in, and then the war is still, they're just trying to look for a middle course approach. So Trump has a personal relationship with Putin, and that, of course, is at variance with American stance as far as Russian issues are concerned. So it's not surprising that the recently confirmed defense secretary will come and tell you that American troops will not be there for any peacekeeping operation. As it is now, what the Trump administration is looking for is for Ukraine to cede part of their land to Russia as a way of rapprochement to ending the war, and for which every other part of Europe is against. So Trump is very, very susceptible. Very friendly with Putin. As such, he will not want to be hard, just like the everyday American president will all want to be as far as Russian issues is concerned.
Yeah, and the U.S. Defense Secretary also says that the fundamental issue of Ukraine NATO membership is unrealistic. Would you agree to that statement, that is unrealistic?
What was the cause of the war initially, among others, is that Ukraine wants to be a member of NATO so that they can have more security. And that was even why Putin had to attack Ukraine in order to say he can score to that. It's not an impossible task if the U.S. would be the U.S. that we know. You see, U.S. has been a country that stands against Russia because Russia is a world power. And anything that will give Russia advantage over a military advantage over the allies of U.S., they stand against it. But like I said, it's not. I mean, everyone should expect what is happening today, and that is why the president of Ukraine has been running around just before this administration comes to power to see how much leverage you could have. So Russia, what do you call him, Trump, is a friend of Russia, of Putin, not just a friend of Russia, but himself and Putin, they have some personal thing that the world is yet to know as to why he is trying to see how he can dance to their tune. What is impossible in Ukraine being a member of NATO? Why is it a ruled out thing? Every other NATO members, every other European countries want Ukraine to be a member of NATO so that they could solidify Ukraine's security. So why will America say it is not it's impossible? I think that shows the character of Trump and that his alliance and allegiance to Putin, other than maintaining the interest of the allies that Americans have had over the years.
And let's look at the implication of the stand of Trump's administration. Just look at their approach on this war. Do you see a demoralized Ukraine in the near future? Will they give in or will they just give up?
Well, Ukraine, they have put up a good fight as far as standing up to Russian aggression is concerned. The war is almost 3 years old now. I mean, as far as Russia was concerned, they thought it was going to be a tea party, that they would just overrun Ukraine within a week or two, and Ukraine will be a part of Russia. But they have seen that that is not possible, and that the Ukrainians have fought tirelessly with the support of the democratic government in America and other European countries. With what Trump is doing now, yes, there's going to be some demoralization of Ukraine. Ukraine will end up ceding their territories to Russia in order for them, because I mean, without the Western support, without the Western weapon, without the Western ammunition, without the Western money, Ukraine may not be able to stand at all with Russia in terms of for a longer time. So Ukraine might be demoralized a bit, but again, they've put up a brave fight, and it now depends on other European countries to see how much leverage they can have. Well, Trump has 4 years in the White House. Yes, just started, and then let's see what will happen after the Trump era. But Trump should know that he has 4 years, and 4 years will not end the world. Some other person will come in, and then the real American power, the real American that we know, that's always standing toe-to-toe with Russia, might still manifest in a longer. But the world is empathic to Ukraine right now because they've been left bare. Just like what Trump did in the first time, when he has to betray the Kurds in northern Syria and allowed Turkey to overrun them. I mean, America was defending and protecting them until Trump came and he just withdrew the support and allowed the Turkish authority to overrun the Kurds in northern Syria. I mean, this is the kind of person Trump is, and he's a divisive person, and his own strategy nobody knows. But let's hope that 4 years will come and go, and then the world will be a better place post-Trump era.
Well, that seems to be every hope of the international world or the global stage looking. Alistair, many thanks for doing this with us. Alistair Wilcox, he's international policy analyst, just giving us a bit of insight with the Ukraine and Russia war and the U.S. stance on that war. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, Israel to resume fighting if Hamas fails on ceasefire deal. This and more after the break. Join us again. And now to the Middle East. The Gaza ceasefire will end if Hamas does not return Israeli hostages by midday on Saturday. And this is from Israel's Prime Minister. Now, it comes after Hamas said it would postpone Saturday's planned release, accusing Israel of violating the terms of the ceasefire. There are fears that violence could return to the enclave in a matter of days. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
There are growing fears that the war in Gaza could resume after Israel's security cabinet backed a key demand from US President Donald Trump that all remaining hostages be released by this Saturday.
You have the hostages possibly there. They don't know where they are. And you know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make a deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered troops to amass inside and around Gaza. The move follows Hamas's decision to postpone the release of more hostages until further notice. However, Netanyahu has not clarified whether he is demanding the release of all 76 remaining hostages or just the 3 who were set to be freed this Saturday. The Prime Minister also warned of a return to intense fighting and said his cabinet were in unanimous agreement following a 4-hour meeting.
ההחלטה שהעברתי בקבינט פה אחד היא זאת: אם חמאס לא יחזיר את חטופינו עד שבת בצהריים, הפסקת האש תיפסק וצה"ל יחזור ללחימה עצימה עד להכרעה סופית של החמאס. לאור הודעת החמאס על ההחלטה שלו להפר את ההסכם ולא לשחרר את החטופים שלנו, הנחיתי אמש את צה"ל לצבור כוחות בתוך רצועת עזה ומסביב לרצועת עזה. הפעולה הזאת מתבצעת בשעות אלה, היא תושלם בזמן הקרוב ביותר. כולנו גם בירכנו על הדרישה של הנשיא טראמפ לשחרור חטופינו עד שבת בצהריים, וכולנו גם בירכנו על החזון המהפכני של הנשיא לעתיד עזה.
Hamas insists it remains committed to the ceasefire deal and has accused Israel of being responsible for any delays. Meanwhile, Arab nations are reportedly pressuring Hamas to get the agreement back on track. In a separate diplomatic development, Jordan's King Abdullah has reaffirmed his opposition to President Trump's plan for Gaza, rejecting any attempt to displace Palestinians. With tensions rising and military forces mobilizing, the future of the ceasefire and the fate of the remaining hostages hangs in the balance. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Tech billionaire Elon Musk, appointed by President Donald Trump to spearhead federal cost-cutting measures, has warned that the United States faces bankruptcy if spending is not curbed. Speaking at the White House alongside Trump, Musk outlined concerns over the soaring budget deficit, which reached $1.8 trillion in the last fiscal year, and highlighted the burden of mounting interest payments on national debt. Musk leads the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, tasked with streamlining federal spending. His remarks come as the Trump administration battles legal challenges, with federal judges scrutinizing the legality of the White House's aggressive cost-cutting measures.
We have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want. What I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget.
The U.S. President Donald Trump has dismissed Paul Martin, the independent inspector general of the U.S. Agency for International Development, just a day after his office criticized the administration's efforts to dismantle the agency. A brief White House email on Tuesday informed Martin that his position had been terminated effective immediately without providing a reason. Martin, appointed by Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, was one of the last remaining inspectors general after Trump dismissed 18 others, independent watchdogs overseeing federal agencies. Since taking office last month, Trump has aggressively pursued his pledge to streamline what he calls an overbearingly large federal government. And that's what we can take from beyond the continent. Is back to the continent. Now remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, on Star Times channel 274. Find us on Apple TV, or better yet, you can stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV.